AITA for blaming my sister-in-law, who almost ruined my wedding by manipulating my fiancé. I was supposed to get married in 2 weeks. Everything was already paid for. The venue in Las Vegas, flights for the family, dresses, Catherine, everything. But 4 days ago, it all just collapsed, and it wasn't because of a problem between us, or so I thought. It was because of her sister, or rather, how she got involved in everything. I never liked her sister, but I'm not the type to start drama over it. I was always respectful, even when she looked at me with disgust, even when she made passive-aggressive comments like, "Well, at least you're not as useless as the last one." At first, I thought it was just her personality, sarcastic, one of those people who talk like they're joking, but you know they're not. I just wanted to keep the peace. I really tried. We've been engaged for 1.5 years. Everything was going well. She and I were building something. We weren't perfect, but we had our plans. The new apartment, the dog we adopted, movie nights with junk food. The basics, but ours. Her sister would come over sometimes. At first, it was every so often, then every week, then almost every day. She said her apartment was unbearable because of the noise, the neighbors, I don't know what. She'd sleep on the couch, get in the kitchen, criticize how we did things. Sometimes she wouldn't even say hello, and my fiancé would act like nothing happened. She's my sister. Understand her. She's going through a rough patch. Up to that point, I kept quiet. I kept quiet when she grabbed my beer without asking. I kept quiet when she used my laptop without permission. I kept quiet when she started making comments about my job, as if she knew something. I kept quiet too much. But a week ago, everything exploded. It was a typical night. We were in the living room, my fiancé, her sister, and me. I was cooking because I like to cook when my head's messed up. I put on some music, nothing special. Everything was fine. Then, the sister starts with her usual. "And you think you're going to support a family on that salary?" I laughed because I thought she was kidding, but then she got serious, looked at me, and said, "I don't understand how someone like you could convince her to marry you." And the worst part wasn't what she said. It was that my fiancé didn't say anything. Nothing, not a word, not a "hey, cut it out." She just sat there with a look of, better not get involved. And that's when something broke inside me. I left. I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell. I just grabbed my keys and walked out. I drove aimlessly, not knowing where I was going. I ended up in an empty Walmart parking lot at 2 a.m. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to go back. I didn't know if the wedding made sense anymore. I felt alone, like I was living with 2 people against me. I went back the next morning. I slept in the car. I went inside without saying a word. She hugged me as if nothing had happened. "Sorry about last night," she said, but it wasn't her saying it. It was her sister. And it was that kind of apology that sounds like mockery, as if she were doing me a favor. I said I needed time. I went to a friend's house. I'm writing this from his couch. There are boxes in the living room with things I brought, but I don't even know if I'm going to unpack them. I don't know if I want to go back. I don't know if I want to marry someone who didn't defend me from something like that. And here comes the worst part. Yesterday, I found out something else, something that doesn't even surprise me anymore, but it still hurts. What I found out yesterday was like a kick in the stomach, but more than pain, it was a kind of emptiness, as if something I had already been feeling, without being able to explain it well, was finally confirmed. My friend, the one I'm staying with now, told me. He's known me forever, so when all this started to fall apart and I asked to stay at his place for a few days, he didn't ask much, just gave me the key and told me to do what I needed to. But yesterday, while we were lying around watching whatever on TV, he turned to me and said, "I think you should know something. I don't know if it matters at this point, but I was told weeks ago and I didn't know whether to tell you." And with that phrase alone, you get tense. I sat up straight, told him to just say it. He told me that about a month ago, a friend of his girlfriend saw my fiancé at a restaurant downtown. She wasn't alone. She was with her sister, and they were with another guy, a guy neither of them knew. The weird thing wasn't that they were with someone. It was the way they were acting. He told me that, according to this girl, the sister was constantly pushing my fiancé towards the guy. Literally, like, pay attention to him, dance with him, relax, you're engaged, not dead. The friend thought we were already married, and it seemed really strange to her. That's why she told my friend's girlfriend, who told him, but he didn't tell me at the time because he didn't want to make me paranoid. According to him, he thought maybe there was some explanation, maybe it was a weird bachelorette party, I don't know. He apologized, said he couldn't keep it in any longer. I listened without saying anything. It was hard to process. The worst part is that it didn't surprise me. It's like when a piece fits perfectly into a puzzle you didn't know you were putting together, because now everything made sense. Why the sister was increasingly involved, why she always tried to sow doubts, why she loved to make me look inadequate for her beloved little sister. She didn't want her sister to marry me. Never did. And not because she thought I was bad for her. It's because she wanted her all to herself, as if she were her property. And I kept thinking, did my fiancé allow it, play along, or simply not dare to tell her no? And if she can't say no to her sister, how the heck are we going to have a life together? After that, I texted her, not to fight, just to tell her we needed to talk in person. She replied a while later saying that she also wanted to see me. We agreed to meet today at a coffee shop a few blocks from where we lived. I didn't sleep at all. I spent the whole night with my head spinning. I didn't know if I was going to end everything today, or if I was going to swallow my words and forgive like a fool. I didn't know. I went to the coffee shop. I arrived 10 minutes early. She was already there. She had dressed up more than usual, but she had that look on her face that she gets when she knows she messed up. She didn't even greet me with a kiss, just looked at me and said, "You know everything, don't you?" And that's when I knew. She didn't deny it. She didn't play the victim. She didn't say, "It's not what it seems." She just lowered her head. She told me that yes, her sister introduced her to that guy as an option to try things out before marriage, that she didn't do anything with him, that they just talked, that it was awkward, that she left early, but that she didn't tell me because she knew it would sound bad, and that she didn't want to fight, that she was tired of fighting over her sister, that she felt trapped. I listened to her, and I don't know if I believe her. I have no proof that anything else happened with that guy, but it doesn't matter anymore. What destroyed me was what she told me afterward. She confessed that her sister is moving in with her to the apartment. Yes, the one that was our apartment. She says she can't tell her no, that her sister is in crisis, that she has no one else, that it's just for a while, that it's temporary, that you know how she is. And that's when I understood everything. This woman will never get out of her sister's shadow. No matter how much I love her, no matter how many times she says she wants to marry me, there will always be that other person there, controlling, giving opinions, inserting herself into our lives as if it were hers. I left without saying anything. I left my coffee untouched. She watched me leave, but didn't follow me. I guess that says it all. I haven't canceled the wedding yet. I don't know if I want to do it myself, or if I want to see if she does it. All I know is I'm not getting married under these conditions. And if she can't choose me over her sister, then she's already made the choice for me. I went back to the apartment just to get my things. I didn't expect to see her there. I thought she'd be at work or with her sister, but she was on the couch, barefoot, in her pajamas, as if nothing was wrong. She looked at me when I opened the door with my copy of the key, but she didn't say anything at first. She just stood there looking at me with that tired look I also had. It was weird. It was as if, for the first time in months, we were both equally messed up inside. I didn't even say hello. I went straight to the bedroom and started packing a suitcase. Not many things. Clothes, a couple of books, my razor, basic stuff. While I was packing, I heard her approach the doorway. She didn't come in, just stood there. And then she started talking. "She's only moving in for a month," she said, as if that changed anything. I told her it didn't matter, that if after all this, the only thing she had to tell me was that her sister was going to live with her for a month, then we were already more than broken. She asked if I was leaving her. I told her I didn't know, that it wasn't a definite yes, but not a no either. I told her I wasn't going to wait around for her sister to give us permission to have peace. And that's when she finally broke. She cried like I'd never seen her cry before. She told me she felt guilty, that she knew I was right, that she had allowed a lot of things, that her sister had that power over her since they were little girls, that when their parents separated it was her sister who took care of everything. The house, her, everything. That since then she felt like she owed her life to her, that telling her no was like betraying her. And then I understood something that screwed me up even more. She didn't betray me out of hate or disinterest. She betrayed me out of fear, out of misunderstood loyalty, out of feeling trapped in an emotional debt to someone who knows exactly how to manipulate her. Her sister isn't just nosy, she's a controlling jerk. And my fiancé, my ex, I don't know. She doesn't know how to get rid of that. I listened to her. I didn't say much, because I understood what she was saying, but that didn't justify it. Sometimes things hurt more when you understand the reasons. I wanted a partner, not a woman with an invisible chain around her neck. I told her the wedding wasn't happening, that if she needed time to get her life in order, she should take it, but not to think I was going to stick around while everything revolved around someone else. I told her that if she ever wanted to come back alone, without baggage, without dragging anyone else along. She asked me to stay. She grabbed my arm. She said we could kick her sister out, that she would set boundaries, that this time she meant it, that now she understood. I asked her why it had to come to this for her to understand. Why after so many signs, so many situations, so many times I swallowed my pride and put up with it. She only reacted when I already had one foot out the door. She didn't know what to say. I finished packing. I closed the suitcase. I left. I left without kissing her, without hugging her, only with the image of her standing in the doorway of the apartment we were going to share as husband and wife, now turned into a field of ruins where no one built anything solid. The next day, I canceled everything. The wedding, the photographers, the venue, everything. I lost money. It was hard for my parents to understand. My friends, some supported me. Others said it was an overreaction. But I knew that if I continued with it, I would be bitter for the rest of my life. And the most ironic thing is that her sister texted me. Yes, the same one who ruined everything, sent me a message. Not to apologize, not to admit anything. She wrote to tell me that she wasn't the reason we were breaking up, that if it all fell apart it was because my fiancé and I never had a solid foundation, that she was just worried about her sister. I swear I read it 10 times. I wanted to smash my phone. I wanted to write back and tell her everything I was thinking, but I didn't. I just turned off my phone and went for a walk, because at that moment I realized that she wasn't the one I needed to talk to. There was nothing left to say. I went back to my friend's house that night and collapsed on the couch as if my soul had been ripped out of my body. He looked at me, didn't say anything, threw me a blanket, and went back to his room. It's appreciated when someone doesn't force you to talk, because sometimes the worst thing isn't what happened, but having to repeat it out loud and feel like an idiot while doing so. 2 days passed without contact, neither with her nor with anyone. I turned off my phone. I deactivated my Instagram. I turned off email notifications. Nothing. Total silence. The only thing I did was go for walks, aimlessly, as if searching for something but not knowing what. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't sleepy, just a dull anxiety that settled in my chest as if it had always lived there. But on the third day, she showed up. She knocked on the door of my friend's apartment. The sound woke me up. I went to open it, half asleep, and there she was, standing, crying alone. I told her it wasn't the place or the time, but she asked for 5 minutes, just 5. My friend didn't even peek out. I guess he already knew this was going to happen. She came in and sat in the chair across from the couch. She didn't look directly at me, and the first thing she said was, "She doesn't live with me anymore. She left last night." I told her it couldn't go on like this. I didn't answer. I waited. She told me that when she was left alone in the apartment, she felt like she could finally breathe, that her sister threw a fit, that she cried, that she accused her of choosing a man over her family, that she told her she would regret it, but that she didn't stop this time, that for the first time in her life, she told her no. I'm not going to lie, hearing that made me feel something. I don't know if it was relief, sadness, or a silly hope that I don't want to admit, but I remained silent. She kept talking. She said she went to a therapist that same morning, that she asked for help, that she realized she had always lived to please others, especially her sister, that she no longer knew who she was outside of that role, and that she didn't want to drag me into that if I didn't want to come back she understood, that she wasn't asking me to resume anything. She just wanted to tell me that she was going to change, even if it was alone. That hurt, because it was sincere, because I finally saw her speaking from a real place, not from guilt or habit. I listened to her talk like never before. I asked her if all this was because of the wedding or because of me. She told me it was for her, that she wasn't even sure she wanted to get married when we said yes, but she didn't want to break anything, that she was just repeating what people expected of her, that when she started to see that everything was becoming real, she got scared and didn't know how to handle it, that it wasn't planned, but it wasn't fair either. She told me she didn't want to come back now, that she wasn't okay yet, that she had things to fix, but that if we ever crossed paths again and we were both ready, then she would like to start over from scratch, without promises, without future plans, just from who we really are. And after that, she left. She didn't try to stay. She didn't ask for another chance. She didn't text me that night. Just silence. That night, I cried. Not from sadness, nor from anger. I cried because I finally understood that the person I thought I was going to marry never existed, as I imagined her. Not out of malice, but because we were both acting. Me too. I also played my part in keeping up a facade. I also kept quiet too many times. I also swallowed things because I didn't want to argue, because I wanted it to work at all costs. I was also a coward, in a different way. And that hurts to acknowledge. The worst part of all this wasn't losing the wedding. It was losing the version of myself who thought I had it all figured out. Now I'm standing in the middle of something I don't know if it's an ending or a beginning. I still have my suitcase packed. I still don't know whether to go back to that apartment, whether to return the keys, whether to move out of state. I have friends who have offered me work in Seattle. My mom wants me to go spend some time in North Carolina. I don't know. Everything is on hold. But there's one thing I do know. I'm not going to live in a relationship where I have to compete with someone else for the space that belongs to me, whether it's a sister, a mother, a trauma, whatever. I don't want conditional love. I don't want to have to fight for respect. It's been 2 weeks since that last conversation with her. We haven't spoken again, not a message, not a call. Nothing. Absolute silence. It's weird to say, but I don't miss her. Or at least not her as a partner. Sometimes a silly memory comes to me, like seeing her cooking in her pajamas or lying around watching TV shows with the dog, and it hurts a little, but then I remember how I felt those last few weeks. Tense, uncomfortable, as if I were asking permission to exist in my own life. I'm staying in an Airbnb I rented for a month now. It's cheap, it's on the outskirts of town, and no one bothers me. I work remotely, so I can keep doing my job without seeing anyone. I don't feel like seeing anyone. My friends have insisted that we go out, have a drink, distract myself, but I don't have the energy. The only thing I do well now is walk. I go out every night, walk for hours, without music, without direction, just the sound of my steps and the empty streets. One of those nights, I ran into one of her friends. Well, ours at the time. I saw him at a gas station. He was buying beer. He recognized me immediately. He greeted me as if nothing had happened, but you could tell he knew. He asked me how I was doing. I said fine. He replied with, I figured this would happen someday. I asked him why he said that, and that's when he told me something that made me seethe inside. He told me that her sister, yes, the same one, had been talking badly about me with the whole group of friends, that for months she'd been saying I was controlling, that I wouldn't let my fiancé go out, that I would yell at her, that I had her trapped, that she was worried about her emotional well-being. Me controlling? Me, who kept quiet so many times to avoid causing problems, who never forbade her anything, who let her go out with whoever she wanted, who never checked her phone, who went to all the family gatherings even though I felt like an intruder. Me, who swallowed her snubs and just stepped aside. I felt a rage that I don't know how I didn't explode right there, but I swallowed hard and kept listening. He told me that he and others no longer believed anything her sister said, that everyone realized how she was manipulating the situation, that even several of the group no longer spoke to her because they were fed up with her attitude, and that some were even disappointed in my ex for allowing all of this. That's what hit me the hardest, because it's one thing for someone to attack you from the outside. It's another thing for the person who's supposed to protect you to remain silent while others destroy your image. I said fine again, my head burning. I didn't sleep at all. I stayed up writing all this as a way to organize my thoughts. I realized that this story began as an attempt to vent and is becoming a kind of archive, a log, a way of not letting all of this be buried without having been recorded. The wedding, as I said, is canceled, but there are still people who don't know. My aunts and uncles, some cousins. I get automated emails from vendors with reminders for final payments. I find it hard to explain why something that seemed perfect went to hell so fast. The truth is, it wasn't fast, it was slow. It was an accumulation of little things that I ignored out of convenience, or out of fear of being the bad guy. And now here I am, alone, but calm. Not at peace, not happy, but at least I'm no longer enduring someone else's reality. And her? I have no idea. They say she's living alone again, that her sister moved to another state, that she's seeing a therapist, that she doesn't talk much, that she looks different. I don't know. It could be true, It could be more drama. A part of me wants to believe that she's changing, another part doesn't even want to know. Because even if she changes, even if the sister disappears, I'm no longer the same guy who knelt down with a ring in his hand thinking he'd found the woman he wanted to share his life with. That guy died a while ago, and I think that's okay. Yesterday afternoon, I finally went to the apartment we shared. I hadn't been back since I quickly picked up my things, but I needed to close that chapter, literally. I had to give the keys back to the landlord. I sent him a message letting him know I would be stopping by, and he gave me permission to enter one last time before changing the locks. I went in alone. The place was empty. There was nothing left of us. Nothing of her either, just the furniture that came with the lease. But it still felt weird. The air had that particular smell that only spaces where you've lived something important have, or something you thought was important. I walked around the living room, and all I could think was, how the hell did we end up like this? I remembered the first time we came to see the apartment, excited like kids. She had that smile that came out when she pretended to be calm, but inside, she was going 1,000 miles an hour. She hugged me tight when we signed the contract. She said, "Now everything really begins." Yes, it began, but not how we thought it would. I sat on the floor, right where the couch used to be. I closed my eyes, forced myself to be quiet for a few minutes, just to feel, not to think, not to plan the next step, just feel. And what I felt was that I lied to myself for a long time, that I clung to the idea of being in a solid relationship, when in reality, I was just adapting to survive it. After everything that happened with her sister, with the canceled wedding, with the silent emotional abandonment I had to endure, I realized that I never knew how to set boundaries, neither with her nor with anyone. And yes, I'm angry. I'm angry that there are people like her sister who interfere in other people's lives, who manipulate, who play with other people's emotions as if they were pieces on their chessboard. But I'm even angrier that I allowed it for so long, that I put up with all that just to hold on to something that was already broken. I was in there for an hour. I went out, closed the door, left the keys in the mailbox as they asked. I didn't look back. There was no cinematic ending, just a slammed door and silence. Today I woke up with a message from her. I wasn't expecting it, but it didn't surprise me either. It was long. She said she had been writing it for days, that she had been to therapy 3 times that week, that she had talked to her mom, that she also confessed that she had experienced something very similar with a sister of hers, that all this had opened wounds she didn't even know she had, that for the first time she understood why she allowed her sister to control her so much, why she had put me in such an unfair position without realizing it. She thanked me, literally thanked me for leaving. She said that if I hadn't, she would never have reacted. She said she didn't expect me to come back, that she wasn't looking for that. She just wanted me to know that she was changing, not for me, but for her. And that if she ever crossed paths with me again in another life, and we were both okay, would she like to be able to greet me without shame? I didn't reply, not because I have nothing to say, but because I don't know. Sometimes there are messages that don't need an immediate response. Sometimes silence also closes things. Today, after weeks, I did something different. I went to see my mom. I called her early. She said she was waiting for me with lunch. I went. We talked about simple things. She hugged me more than usual. She told me that it broke her heart to think that I was going through a hard time, and she didn't realize it. I didn't want to tell her everything, but I told her something basic, that I'm not going to put up with things anymore, just to avoid conflict. What did I learn late? But I learned. I think, for the first time in years, I felt like a son again. After that, I sat on the porch of her house, like when I was a kid, and I watched the sun go down. And although nothing was completely resolved, although I still don't know what's next, although I feel a bit lost, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a failure. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't getting out of a relationship. It's getting out of the version of yourself that put up with too much. I went back to the Airbnb feeling lighter after being at my mom's. And I don't mean it as if everything magically got fixed by seeing a loved one. But it was the first time in a long time that I was in a place where I didn't feel like I had to justify anything. There were no uncomfortable questions, no advice disguised as criticism, just a hot meal, a hug, and the feeling that it was okay to just be unwell. That night, I got another message. This time it wasn't from her. It was from one of our mutual friends, one of those who stayed on the sidelines, who never got too involved, but who was always at all the birthdays, gatherings, barbecues. He asked me to meet up. He wanted to tell me something. I said yes, more out of curiosity than interest. We met at a bar. He ordered a beer and a soda, and after the awkward greetings, he went straight to the point. Her sister is saying that you were violent. I didn't understand at first. I thought it was an exaggeration, but no. He told me that, literally, the sister is saying that I pushed my ex, that once I yelled at her so loudly that she thought I was going to hit her, that I got aggressive when I drank. He told me with a serious face. He clarified that he didn't believe it, but that several of the group are starting to look at me differently. And there I broke. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just froze. I felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. One thing is a fight, a mistake, a painful decision, but quite another is someone deliberately destroying your name, someone fabricating something so serious just to justify their narrative. I asked him if my ex was repeating that. He said no, that she didn't talk about it, that when someone asked, she just said the relationship didn't work out and that it was because of many personal things, but she didn't deny it either. And that hurt more than anything. Because if you know that they're saying something like that about someone you shared your life with, even if you don't love them anymore, you have to speak up, you have to put a stop to it, because silence also destroys. I said fine again, trembling. I sat in front of the mirror. I stared at myself. I wondered if at some point, without realizing it, I had crossed a line. I remembered all our fights, all the arguments, the day I left home without saying a word, when I locked myself in the bathroom to cry so as not to make noise, when I felt like a ghost in my own relationship. I never raised my voice to her. I never laid a hand on her. Never. And that gave me a mix of rage, sadness, and disgust, because now, in addition to the pain of losing everything I built, I have to carry a stain that doesn't belong to me. I spent hours thinking about whether I should write to her, whether I should demand that she speak up, stop her sister, defend me, but I didn't. Because I already understood that if you have to ask someone to tell the truth, then that truth is worthless. Today, what weighs most heavily on me is not the failure of the relationship, nor the canceled wedding, nor the memories. It's the loss of dignity for something I didn't even do. And I'm telling all this here not because I want to clear my name. I have no one to convince. I do it because I need to write it down, for myself, so I don't forget, to be clear that this happened, that it was real, and that I don't deserve it. Maybe later I'll do something legal, maybe not. I'm talking to a lawyer. I don't want revenge, I just want to make sure that that story doesn't become the official version. Because if there's one thing I'm clear about, it's that I'd rather be alone 1,000 times than be next to someone who lets me bleed out in silence while someone else stabs me. Tomorrow I'm leaving town. I'm going to drive to Portland, where a cousin who offered me a place to stay lives. I don't know if I'm going for a few days or forever. I haven't decided. But I know I can't stay in a place where people start to doubt who I am, just because someone decided to lie louder than me. I don't want this to sound like an ending, because it's not. I'm already in Portland. I arrived 3 days ago. I drove almost 14 hours straight, with minimal stops. I slept in a roadside motel one night, just because I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. I didn't care about the discomfort. I just wanted to get away. Every mile I left behind made me feel a little lighter. Not happy, not better, but further away from the noise, further away from the lies, further away from everything that was consuming me. My cousin welcomed me without many questions. He just opened the door, showed me the room, offered me a coffee, and went on with his life. That kind of quiet support that doesn't demand anything, that doesn't make you uncomfortable. I'm sleeping on an air mattress, eating what's there, and going for walks around the neighborhood like another stranger. Nobody knows me. Nobody asks me anything, and that, for now, is what I need. These days I started therapy. I found someone with good availability, and I went for it. Not because of a crisis, but because I don't want to drag this around like an emotional corpse. I don't want it to rot inside me, because what I experienced, even if many people don't see it, was a slow form of wear and tear, a wear and tear that makes you doubt your perception, your intuition, your worth. Talking to the therapist helped me put things in order, to understand why I kept quiet so much, why I clung so much to someone who clearly didn't know how to put me first. She asked me in one of the sessions, "And why do you think you put up with it for so long?" And the truth is I didn't know how to answer her. But later, just walking by the river, I realized, because I was afraid of being alone and having to rebuild everything from scratch. But here I am, alone, starting from scratch, and I didn't die. I didn't explode. I didn't break. I resisted. And that, right now, is enough. Today I received an email. Not from her, from the wedding caterer. It said they had kept some souvenirs we had made, some jars with our names engraved and the date that never was. They asked me if I wanted them, if they should send them to me. I was about to say no, to throw them away, that I didn't care, but then I thought better of it. I told them yes, to send them. Because I don't want to erase any of this. I don't want to pretend it never happened. This story, as ugly as it was, also changed me. It forced me to look at who I was in a relationship, who I don't want to be again, and what things I will never negotiate again. I don't know if she's still talking about me. I don't know if her sister still says I'm a bad person. I don't know if someday someone who hears those lies will look at me with distrust, but it's not my problem anymore. Because at the end of it all, if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You can lose love, home, trust, but you can't lose yourself for fear of making noise. And that's what I was doing. Keeping quiet so as not to bother, enduring so as not to be the troublemaker, giving in so as not to lose, and I ended up losing it all anyway. So enough. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.